Hey there, folks. Hope you're doing well today. As for learning, a big part of being a Christian white nationalist is making sure that whites are the majority. So the replacement theory is a very big deal. Now, the premise of the video we're looking at today is about blaming immigrants and blaming women for your problems. And I know it's going to be hard to imagine, but a guy named Depressed Ginger is communicating these ideas. I know, sounds like a real winner. Now, a lot of the cope these days is that Donald Trump is actually reversing the trend, that America is not slowly becoming non-majority white. Now, keep in mind, though, it's not like whites are being replaced. What's happening is what you'd imagine in a very diverse place. People of different backgrounds are getting together and having children, and because of that, those children are white. I mean, also, you have a lot less white people getting together and having children. Either way, this is a problem for the white nationalists. So first, let's see him make the case that Donald Trump is reversing this.
Due to the deportations, due to limiting visa applicants, there's some experts that have said Trump's actually reversed the demographical trend, meaning white people eventually becoming minorities. You get all these people trolling about it. I see it constantly talking about a countdown clock to the United States becoming minority majority, which is when the white population falls below 50%. And then if you say anything about that, you're racist. But now the window's kind of moved to where people are actually talking about it. They're actually discussing it. And unfortunately, you look at a lot of these Hollywood elites and just these influencers at the Grammys or the Oscars or whatever it is, they're so clueless on how the United States actually came to be. They think it was literally created by a bunch of minority fractions coming together and not overwhelmingly white up until 1965.
Okay, so there's just so much there. But probably the biggest hypocrisy is how he tries to call out the left for not understanding the history of America, not understanding the founding fathers, not understanding that the only way you got an invite to that party is if you were rich and white and a landowner. If you were a woman, if you were black, if you were native, if you were poor and white, you were invited. But I'm sure he has a heritage of very rich Irish people, and he would have been included in that moment and been able to discriminate. Now, it doesn't take long before the conversation about immigrants is directed at women because, yeah, that connection makes sense.
But they're going to say, well, we have to let in more legal immigrants. We need them. It's important. They need them because their party is going extinct. Why wouldn't it? It's based off of their own ideology of telling women not to have families and embrace this hyper-feminism and saying you don't need a man. And many of them just stay single, or they want to meet a partner. They don't want a family. They don't want to make the sacrifice in terms of their body for a few years in their 20s, dealing with a kid. The time, the money, the effort that goes into it. And so also being anti-religion, there's a total detachment there. And then what do they say? What is this data really talking about? Well, then liberals say, you know what? We're just going to...
Okay, so we see there his claim is that the Democrats created something called hyperfeminism, and we're pushing it to women. And first of all, let's just clear things up. Feminism is just the idea that men and women are equal. And if there are things that are being accelerated, like women not wanting to spend time and sacrifice their body to a guy named Depressed Ginger, who not only wants to control women, but also immigrants, that's a you thing. Because go outside, Mr. Depressed Ginger, look around. You're surrounded by men who are with women. Why do you think that is? Maybe because they're not all losers like you. You should go out and get real hobbies, real passions, not making videos about Hitler. Chicks dig guys who do real things and have real passions, not tiny-dicked Nazis. I mean, I can't believe I have to walk these ideas out for you.
It's talking about white births falling below 50%. And I was told even in 2024, 2025, it was 43% white births. Now, you look at the really localized numbers. I'm talking 2025 right after Trump got in, the year 2025, they said, well, Trump has reversed it. And they say it's temporary. We don't know if it's going to stick. They said the Hispanic birth rate fell significantly. And what is the reason of that? Is that just a 1 year, one off thing? Is that possibly have to do with maybe deportations, possibly a lot of self deportations? They say it's 2 million in total. What is that exactly? Because it is interesting. I do think if Trump keeps these policies, you could see a change. Will that be reverted, though, in 2028 if liberals win? I mean, that's the question in terms of the amount of immigration they let in the country. And nobody really knows the amount of illegals, but you have to understand the gaslighting that they will do. They'll say, well, listen, you just get the really, 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 really bad ones out. Leave all the other illegals. It's like 95 to 98% of them that the only crime that they committed was coming over illegally. They actually argue that's not even crime. They say it's a misdemeanor. Well, it is classified as a crime, but it doesn't even matter. The country has to have borders. If you come in illegally, you've got to get sent back. That's just the reality.
And so in this last clip, this is when we see his arguments really begin to fall apart. It wasn't just 2 clips ago that he was referencing the Founding Fathers. And here what he's doing is demonstrating he doesn't understand the Constitution. Because he's talking about illegal immigrants breaking criminal laws. And that's not the way it works. The Constitution says if you're on this land, you get to see a judge to see if you get to stay. So this guy trying to call out the left, saying we don't understand the country or the Founding Fathers. And here he is on the internet, blaming everyone else, complaining that he can't get a woman, and he goes by the name Depressed Ginger. Like, you can't make this shit up.
That's fundamentally how the country or a nation state is supposed to work. The country is the people. The people are the country. Countries have demographical majorities that make up their overall culture. That's why they try and say that white people have no culture. It's a way to strip it away and say, well, this is actually an economic zone. The country doesn't exist. Why do you think there's no patriotism within liberals anymore? Because inherently they try and co-opt this idea of liberalism with the Founding Fathers, but it doesn't work in terms of actually understanding what the Founding Fathers believed in terms of demographical preservation within the United States and Western Europe immigration into the US versus what we're seeing now in a post-1965 world. And we've got this democracy. Well, our demographics have changed completely. We didn't really vote for that, did we? It's very interesting how that works.
Okay, and here we wonder if maybe he's watching the videos that we're making, because we actually just made a video talking about how we were wrong about white culture, and we showed a grocery store that had 6 bars, and we learned what white culture was. It was pretty much just peeing on people's faces and appropriating other cultures. Either way, we'll link the video here. No, but in reality, white is a label. It's a containment. There isn't a culture behind it. It's something that the government used to categorize people. You don't build cultures around that. Cultures have language and food and history. The only thing that white people share and celebrate is colonization. Oh, and genocide. But then he actually goes on to talk about the Founding Fathers wanting demographical preservation. But he doesn't back that claim up, pointing to any documents like we do when we could point to the Constitution and its rule on people not from this land. But this is what it's like to be on the right. The consumers of this garbage don't care. They just want to live in a world of lies and be grifted by a guy named Depressed Ginger.
And then this tweet says the left would be extinct in 20 years. I think they would have to reinvent themselves as something else. I don't think they would be extinct, but their party would be significantly weakened, and they would have to probably move to a more moderate position. The issue is when you look at it, even with the conservative birth rates being significantly higher, that could potentially be offset by immigration. And you look at, there's a reason in 2016 they were saying Texas is going to go blue. And you look at this, something like this, there's a reason that liberals in 2016 were saying that Texas eventually was going to go blue. Look at Texas. Total, this is white births in 2023, the year 2023, just a few years ago. This is relatively new data. 22%. And the thing with Texas is the reason people are surprised is because of the amount of Hispanics that are actually conservative in the state.
Okay, so first of all, this whole argument is really stupid. The idea that there's a total correlation between birth rates of white people and voting conservative, people of color voting liberal. It's a complex equation with many variables. Yeah, historically, I used to think that the children of immigrants would be voting for the left. But interestingly enough, a bunch of Groypers who are children of immigrants hate their parents and actually vote against them. It's a very strange moment in time. But really, the best part of this video is to watch this white nationalist freak out over a map and the idea that white people are going to become a minority. And he thinks these immigrants are such boogeymen. He thinks that diversity is such a boogeyman that he's going to be squashed out. And he's wrong. The real reason he's going to be tossed aside is because he has dumb ideas and no one is going to want to be with someone like that. But it is all so transparent. His insecurity, his fear, the blame. Like nothing about this is masculine. And he wants to demand women to be with him like you're a whiny, blamey person who has no accountability. I think that is a loser by definition. But that's neither here nor there, right?
That's neither here nor there. The point is, they really need this. I mean, they're going to need immigration. They need these illegals to become citizens. They need them voting. And maybe Trump will be able to stop it. We'll have to see. The fertility rate's very important. We know that they're not having kids. They preach it. They're anti-family, and they're proud of it. So how is your party going to exist in 40 or 50 years? Well, it's through immigration. It's through people that are not American right now. They become American. And that's why we say, and they preach, they won't admit it. They say it's an economic zone. We really don't like the United States. It's stolen land. They try and do that argument. Just like when the Native Americans, they were born here. Oh, wait, no, they came through the Bering Strait. So they're native to what? The Bering, to Russia?
And so we continue to see his arguments only get stronger. And here he makes the claim that this wasn't the Native Americans' land because even though they were here on it, created culture, trade routes, currency, languages, it actually isn't theirs because they're from Russia. But I mean, again, this logic could only be applied back to him. He's from Ireland, right? So if he didn't come here, this land isn't his either. Like, all of the logic of these people is so flawed, and they're all so stupid. The problem is their followers are so stupid, they don't know. They can't see how stupid the person they're listening to is. It's just an endless cycle of stupidic synergy called the internet.
I mean, it's completely ridiculous. And then how about when it shows those timelines of the United States and the Western Europeans taking all the land from the Native Americans? It shows the exact borders of the United States. These are isolated tribes in very small areas that are, it's like the tribes made up like a quarter of a city. And it says they controlled all this land. The Native Americans controlled all the lands and the white people just took everything from them. No, we actually bought most of the land, and a lot of the land was just vacant anyways. They didn't have control of this land. You know where the term America comes from? It comes from a European. All of it comes from Europeans. So...
Okay, here we go again with this one. So, again, the claim he's making here is that because they had just small cities, the genocide of those small cities is justified. And then he tries to make a claim that the land was bought. No, it was bought with treaties. No, it was obtained through coerced treaties that were immediately violated by the United States right after signing them. And none of this is about guilt. It's just about being aware of history and living in fucking reality. And then at the end of the clip, of course, we have to hear the quiet part out loud where they have to talk about how Europeans are supreme. That's why he keeps talking about how America was a creation of Europeans. So here, I'm sure he wants to take all the credit in the next clip. Let's take a look.
It's all this fake revisionist history about stealing land, and that's their justification for the country to be turned into an economic zone. They say, you stole the land, so even though you've created the number one biggest superpower, now you must allow it to be destroyed because we have compassion and suicidal empathy. So we create the number one biggest superpower. I mean, the Irish were involved in that. And people don't like Irish. Irish were involved in that railroad system. Erie Canal, everything. And listen, I know there are a lot of Germans and many others, but you create the biggest superpower, but now we have to give it up. We must give it up because we have suicidal empathy, and it's already.
Okay, just way too much to unpack there. First off, let's get one thing straight. It's very questionable whether this guy even built things with Legos, let alone he never fucking built a country. So for this guy to try to take ownership for building America, and again, leaving out all the context and the history of the oppressed groups that actually built America, well, I guess he does because he mentioned his own race, the Irish. Oh my God. But there is one other important idea worth exploring here is how he's trying to rebrand empathy. And so, again, a guy named Depressed Ginger is saying those on the left have suicidal empathy. So again, how do you put empathy, right? When you're considerate of others, when you have compassion of others, how do you put that in a bad light? And again, I think there's some projection here by the depressed ginger who wants to brand things as suicidal. But again, this plays into his insecurity and his fear. The boogeyman, the immigrants are going to come and get you. So when you show them empathy, you're basically committing suicide because the boogeymen are going to come and get you. This is such a big fucking joke that if young men are looking up to guys like this depressed ginger who just whine and blame people, we're cooked. Society is cooked.
Leopards are eating my face.